Show time. Let's see. I want to make sure y'all can hear me before I really start taking off on this because that would be the worst. Just give me a second. Hope y'all all are having a blessed week so far. We're in the middle of the week, so of course you got the end of the week to, of course, make the best of it. Whenever, honestly, you're watching this. Are we good? Yes, we are indeed. So let's go ahead and kick things off. I like to be prompt, especially with today's conversation. Hopefully, we get some additional heads that can pop in here and we can answer any questions. Hopefully, you guys can take me seriously. I got my hood on. I'm not hiding nothing. There's nothing here to hide. I just feel like, the mood that we're gonna come into today is gonna be a little bit spookier. So, something that I wanted to discuss is really appraisals, as you guys can see. Something that I experience in my day to day are appraisals, especially if you're getting a loan. You can't avoid them. I'm sorry, unfortunately, they're there. And essentially, why I want to go over this is because we're going through a different type of market, right? When things aren't always consistently going up. Of course, it all depends on where exactly in the US you are, but for the most part, things aren't going always. Things are not at this current moment in terms of home prices aren't going up. So this is where things can get really spooky in a sense where now your appraisal comes in a lot lower. So we're going to talk about the process of it, how to read an appraisal report. I actually have a few examples, and we'll go through them too, so you can see them as well and understand it. Not just do what most people do, which is just take what the lender is giving them and just go with it. And the importance of it, if I didn't say that already, the importance of an appraisal, why certain improvements, and this is maybe not a lot of you guys are going to care about this, but at least those that already are homeowners, or if you know somebody that is a homeowner, this could be extremely helpful because we're going to be talking about as well why certain improvements on a home, make more sense than others. And then, because that's going to help you understand what to do, what not to do. If you're purchasing, it's going to also give you an idea if you come across a home, and you have to put some sweat and equity into it, then it's going to give you an idea of, what homes to look at. And then the last piece that we'll talk about as well, unfortunately, there are new promises that were made from President Trump. So we have to discuss those as, it's not that big of a deal, but it's something that I think we all should know about. So we're going to have the important conversations here today. Expect a lot of it to be a lot about appraisals and, of course, price cuts, because I don't want you guys to get caught red-handed. Because, again, if you make an offer and your offer price is up here and the appraisal comes in here, you have a big problem. And I'm just going to leave it at that. We'll touch upon why you'll have a big problem. Even if you think you're offering value, right? Again, going back to, I think I did this in my last video where I talked about comparables or comps, whatever you want to call them. It's when you're looking at other sales in the area to understand, what the home value actually is at that current moment. And the reason why it's important to do those, if you don't do them already, is because sometimes the seller is very firm on their price. And if that's the case, then chances are you're not going to know if they made any, well, you'll know if they made adjustments. Of course, Zillow shares all that information, but you won't necessarily know if that's up to date in the market, especially if you're not doing a comparable. Even if they have a real estate agent, sometimes the seller's like, "Yep, this is the price." And again, I've witnessed it myself. It's like, "Hey, this is the price. This is what we're gonna list it for. If I don't get it, then cool. I don't get it. If I get it, then great. We all can move on from it." And also, to the other side of it, real estate agents don't all the time, make price updates for several different reasons. One, probably it's the conversation is not being had, and then the other one is, just maybe doesn't know how to go about it or isn't aware of what's going on in the day to day, right? If you're not aware of what's going on in the day to day, chances are they are a part-time agent, because how do you not know what's going on in real estate? But welcome everyone. As I went on my long rant there, this is what we do every Wednesday. You can catch ups here at 7 p.m. talking about what's going on in the real estate market in the previous week, Today's more is going to be more or less just more of an educational, I guess, aspect of things, and trying to teach you guys and get you guys up to par with appraisals and how appraisers look at things, so that when you do make an offer, you're not going to be in a position where you're like, is this going to go through? Because honestly, appraisals happen towards the end of you being under contract. So if I were to explain the entire home buying process to you right now, I'm not going to talk about you searching for a home. Let's just say you've prepared yourself, you got your pre-approval, you searched for a home, found one, you made an offer, you do your inspections. After your inspections, generally speaking, that's when the appraisal is going to happen. So you're already pretty deep into the whole entire process. In fact, most of my appraisals come in maybe 2 weeks, maybe a week and a half before closing. So you don't have that much time to really make a decision, especially if the seller is like, nah, man, I'm not gonna change my prices. I mean, my price point. My price is my price. You either make up the difference or you can walk. And most times, what do you think most people are going to do? Especially if they're in a position where, they they have a rental that, their lease is ending, right? If you as a buyer gave yourself no choice but to move forward, you're gonna have to figure out, how to make ends meet. So actually, just recently, share a story real quick with you. Just recently, a client of mine just got under contract with him selling his property, and I was speaking to the real estate agent about it, and basically she was like, "Hey, if you're gonna come over, then this is what we all do, right? If you're gonna go over this much of asking price, is your buyer prepared to come up with the difference if it doesn't appraise properly?" Right. So that's gonna be a lot of what we're gonna talk about today. But before we get started, cheers to all of you that are here with me right now. If you've been here before, you see that thing that always is up there, right? I can't even point to it right properly. Let's see. It's right there. Yeah, it's gone. It's here today. So cheers to everyone. If you know, you know. But let's talk about the process. So the process of getting appraisal, again, it's only going to be for those individuals who are getting a loan. If you're not getting a loan, you don't necessarily have to worry about this. I mean, if you're not getting a loan, that means your pockets is heavy. I mean, you got it. Shout outs to you. You have nothing else to really worry about. But this is really appraisals is really going to be for those individuals who have a loan, or if you don't have a loan and you just want to know what your home value is because maybe you're looking to do a refinance to take some cash out of the property, or maybe you just want to know what the value is from a professional just based off of their expertise and their knowledge, just so you can prepare yourself to sell the home. You can do that as well. Just know you're going to pay for that either way, right? You're going to pay for it whether it's a loan or whether it's you just trying to do it on your own. I would say expect that amount to be, and I've seen so many different ones, so it's all going to depend on your lender, but approximately from like 5 to 600, could be a little bit more, but that's the range that I'm seeing for the most part. Now, this is something that your real estate agent is not going to have much control over. It's actually going to be what the lender takes over, and they actually order it for you. So if you tell your real estate agent, hey, when is our appraisal? That's the wrong person you're going to. You need to go to your lender and say, has the appraisal been scheduled? If so, when? Sometimes the real estate agent will know just based off of the conversation with the listing agent. If you have buyer representation, that a real estate agent will know, but that's really what the lender is pretty much ordering to on your behalf to get that done. And so what the appraiser is going to do, right? So there's a few ways they can go about it. Now they're not really doing this, which is they're not just doing drive-bys, they're not just doing it at their computer. In fact, if some still are, kudos to them. I don't know how they're getting away with that because the market isn't moving that fast, but there's ways that they can do it where they drive by the property, just kind of see what's going on in the area without actually physically going into it, or they'll just do a computer appraisal like I mentioned. But the most common one is when they're actually at the property. I wouldn't say inspecting it, but they're walking through and making notes, taking pictures, jotting things down to be able to fill out their entire report, which we'll see a little bit later And if you have a VA and FHA loan, just know those appraisals, they have like their own stipulations that they take it a step further. So if you're conventional, they don't do this, but if you're FHA or VA, they do take it a step further, and they actually like there's like certain, how can I explain this? Right. So there's like, obviously a home has to be livable, right? So they're looking for the things that make a home unlivable for the seller now to go ahead and repair. So they're looking for some things like that. I know in my past I've had but like it was like minor things though. Sometimes it could be major things, but I'll give you an example. It was like the trimming of the out exterior of the home wasn't done, like the siding, I should say. The siding wasn't good. And then there was another one that I had. I think it was something to do with like a deck, right, really falling apart. So they required you to, hey, put this deck back together. Maybe you do go ahead and do a brand new spanking deck, right? This is more for the sellers at this point, but maybe you do a whole brand new deck, or maybe you just kind of, switch, put some pieces of wood together to be able to do that. But that's essentially what the FHA and VAs, they kind of take it a step further. But after that's all said and done and the lender gets the results, you will then get the results as well, not your real estate agent. And this is when, I encourage, you don't have to, because at this point in time, you do what you want with your property, essentially, not the house. I'm talking about the appraisal report. But I encourage you to share that appraisal report with the real estate agent that you are working with, not the listing agent, the buyer's agent, so that you guys can go over that report if you don't go through it by yourself. The reason why I say share it is because if your property does not appraise, you know, now you have to renegotiate, right? You don't have to. Maybe you have deep pockets and you can come out of it, then great. But most times everyone's going to say, hey, let's renegotiate this. And if that's the case, right, that's why I say share it with them. If you wait till the last minute to share it and everyone finds out at the last minute that it did not appraise properly, then I mean, you just literally hurt everybody in the entire process, including the seller, right? Because the seller has a goal. They probably have plans that they already literally looked at. But I encourage, it's important, if you don't want to necessarily look at the appraisal report, at least give it to somebody so that they can review it. I don't know if the lenders are actually going to go through it and sit down. I haven't, in my personal experience, I haven't had a buyer tell me like the lender walked them through and explained to them, not every single step. Because I mean, these reports are not small, right? It's not a one pager. I wish it is. It's more like you're talking 6 pages of a report and just information and data that you're swifting through, you're looking through to understand how did the appraiser even come about that number to say this is what the value of the home is. But enough of that. And now that you understand really like the entire scope, I hope you, at least if you don't understand the entire scope of how an appraiser really works to appraise your property or a property that you're buying, then this would be a perfect time for you to go ahead and drop it in the comments. Let me know. I mean, if you're on the replay, just put hashtag replay. Let me know in the comments about whatever questions that you have so that we can go ahead and discuss it. Because now we are going to, is this the screen? No, it's this one. We're going to look at this article so that you all can understand what appraisers look for when valuing homes, right? Again, this is really going to be helpful for buyers and sellers, right? This is not just a one-sided, because again, as a buyer, you're going to want to know, okay, if appraisers is going to come into this property, what are they really going to look at to ensure that you do get the value that you are looking for, or at least the value that you offered. If you're a seller, you're going to want to make sure that, if you need a refinance, if you want to sell, if you want to just know what your current home value is, whatever it is that you're trying to do, these are the sort of things that is going to be extremely helpful. So we'll go ahead and take a look at the first one. So location and neighborhood. This is a really big one. A lot of people hate HOA communities, but this is a prime example how not by being in an HOA community can extremely help you. And a location it's obviously, location is going to be everything in real estate. If you ever hear anyone say location 3 times in real estate, that's intentional, because you can't necessarily take that home and just, well, maybe if it's a a modular home or a RV or something of that nature. You're not necessarily going to take that home and just move it into an entirely new location. So location is going to play a major role. And when we're talking location, it's literally city down to the county, down to the zip code. Like these, it's so micro to the point in real estate, at least. It's so micro to the point where it's so specific. Let's see what they say here. The location of your home. Let's see. Let's zoom in because you probably can't see this, right? There we go. But the location of your home plays a major role in appraisal value. Appraisers analyze the desirability of your neighborhood, including school districts. Okay, crime rates. That's a stretch, but I'm just reading this thing here. And a proximity to amenities like parks, shopping centers, and highways. They also consider how your home compares to others in the area, right? Comparables, right? We're going back to it. You guys are gonna realize at some point in time, comparables are extremely helpful and important. Even a well-maintained home may have a lower appraisal if it is in a declining neighborhood, while a modest home in a sought area after may see a higher valuation. So again, neighborhood is going to be everything. That's just real estate in general. There's nothing you could do to avoid that. As I mentioned, HOAs, that's gonna help because again, it's HOAs, especially if the HOAs come like monitoring everyone, not just I shouldn't say singling out anyone, but as long as the HOA is monitoring everyone and not one of those HOAs that's kind of like letting everybody do whatever they want and they just kind of do the bare minimum, right? Those won't really help you. But for the most part, they are looking at the location and neighborhood because, again, location and neighborhood is going to reflect how other homes are selling in that area, anyways. So it's like a it's like a give and take situation, right? You're in a bad neighborhood, you're gonna have declining values. Yeah, you're in a good neighborhood, you're gonna have increasing values. And so let's go to the next one. So yeah, we talked about this a lot, right? Comparable home sales. I don't think I need to pound your head even more about what comparables are. Again, I did a video recently. I want to say it's my last one. So just look at the most recent one that dropped last Saturday. So the 22nd, but whatever. That is when I actually go into how is a comparable done. So that's something you could definitely go ahead and take a look at if you really want to know that there's free game there. And if you don't want to do this like a comparable at all or comps, then just give it to your real estate agent. Make sure your real estate agent is doing one at least so that again, like it says or writes here, this is why I think it's important to do it, right? You do whatever you want, but if the sale price right here, so if sales prices are dropping, this could negatively impact your appraisal even if the home is in top condition. It says your home, but if you're watching this, chances are you don't have a home yet. But even if your home is in top condition, all right. So that is exactly why you want to do one because if I'm telling you, you don't want to overpay. It happens more often than you think in this industry where people put it could even be an asking price, right? They put the asking price and sure enough that property does not appraise. A buddy of mine who's also a real estate agent, this happened to him a couple months ago, literally. And whose fault is it? I personally am going to say I'm going to blame the listing agent, especially if I come in at asking price. This is what your research has determined, right? This is what you advise your clients at this point in time to put onto the market. If I do that and we still have appraisal issues, then oh yeah, I'm not putting fingers, but I'm like, hey, hey, we're not nudging here. We're not doing anything. You're gonna fix this issue. That's just how I would handle that. But that's just me. All right. Hard ass, I guess. Excuse my language. Sorry for that. For all the kiddos listening right now. But when you are doing a comparable, right? So if you don't want to watch the video, which I highly suggest you go ahead and do it when this is all said and done, or just put in your watch list. But they are typically looking at similar square footage, lot size, age, features, like features being beds, bath, garage, no garage. It says already lot size. What's another thing that they may consider? I think I said it right. Oh, I know that they'll look at appliances as well. Like, is it up to date? So those are a few things that they'll go ahead and take a look at. And if you guys have any questions in the meantime, let me know. Drop it in the comments so that I can go ahead and answer that and let you know exactly how appraisers look at property so that you can have a better sense of what's going on. As I mentioned, square footage and layout. That is also something that they look at. Yes. Yeah, there's nothing up here. That is also something that they do look at. So I don't think I necessarily need to talk more about this because this is kind of like self-explanatory in my opinion, that they're looking at the square footage. So let's go ahead and just move on. And this shares there's only 10 things I think. Yeah, so it's 10 things appraisers look at, but you'll see just based off of the report, it is not just 10 things. I mean, sometimes looking at that report it gives me a headache. Literally. So condition and maintenance. All right. So that's another big piece. The condition of the property is also gonna play a role simply because if a home is not looking good, right? And it states here are some examples, right? So we're talking signs of damage, structural integrity. So your foundation, right? That's a big one, which I don't know how. I don't think they have the tools to really figure out. And if you have the tools, if you're a appraiser watching this right now, you have the tools to understand if a foundation is going bad. Then let me know what that tool is because I'm curious myself. But if they have the tools, then great. But I don't really know how they will figure that out. And general maintenance, which things like roof leaks, crack foundations, that I guess is probably their only way of figuring out if a foundation is bad. Outdating plumbing, the only way to, I guess, PVC maybe, or no, not PVC. What is it? Polybutylene. That's probably the only thing that they'll go ahead and say. If you guys don't know about that, supposedly polybutylene, however you pronounce it, I'm not sure. That was like used back in the 90s. So if you're looking at a home, this is something I found out in my day to day in real estate. And I didn't find out the hard way, which is great. Right? I just found out because I had clients who were really up to par with making sure that they had a up to date home. So polybutylene is one of those pipings that it's gray. So if you ever see it, if it was a home built in 1990 and it's a gray pipe that you see, I can't tell you exactly how to find it because it all depends on how that home is structured, right? If it's on a slab, chances are just go to the water valve where you turn off the water of the entire home and you may be able to see it there, or you could probably go into your attic. It all because again, most of the pipe is going to be behind the wall, so it's not an easy task to find of what type of, or maybe if the seller is really generous and honest, then they should share it with you on your seller disclosure. At least here in North Carolina, they can. I don't know in other states if they have the ability to be able to share the same thing, but that is one of those that so polybutylene is one of those plumbings that literally they don't really do it anymore, or they don't do it at all. I shouldn't say do it anymore. They don't do it at all because it's not the best way to do it. All right, it's not the best way to pipe a home that needs to have water constantly flowing, whether it's hot, cold, the expansion, all that stuff. It doesn't really work well with this. So I've learned that if you have a home that has it, chances are you don't have to repipe the entire home, but you can if it's a concern to you. I would suggest, just prepare for, maybe a pipe bursting. Sorry to tell you and burst your bubble, but it's possible, right? And that's with that in itself. So, or maybe you can just get some sort of warranty or something that protects you in the long run. But it's not the end of the world if it's there. I'll tell you that. But if you want to treat it like it's the end of the world, then you are free to do so. Just make sure you either write that. Electrical problem is another thing that could lower the home value. That's literally impossible. That's literally impossible. Give me one second. That's crazy. I am literally plugged in and it's still giving me issues. Alrighty. I know what my next step is going to be. So regular maintenance, right? Is you if you're going and now I'm back. I think I am. That's crazy. Even with being plugged in, it still don't make a difference, which is insane to me. But like I was mentioning, regular maintenance, a home that is regularly maintained, and obviously that means it's a good home, honestly. And fresh paint, minor repairs, things like that that's been done. You can always ask for the records of, any from any seller, what has been done in the past to ensure that things were being taken care of, right? And that's actually something that you can use if you have to fight with the appraiser to say, hey, this is why the home is valued a little bit more. But I won't get there. I won't talk about that because I hope you guys all do your comparables before that to even so you don't even get to that point where you have to argue with an appraiser because chances are you're gonna lose. They are not going to let you win for intentional reasons, right? They don't want to look bad, right? Nobody wants to look bad, but we're talking about someone who is literally giving the bank the okay of, hey, yeah, this is how much that home is worth. And then if you are able to combat that and give actual great data, and now they're looking at themselves like, oh, damn, I missed this. But upgrades and renovations. So this is a good conversation to have because not all upgrades and renovations are good. I'm sorry to break your burst your bubble if you think you're just gonna go into a home and just renovate it entirely. Why does this thing keep going in and out for? I'm back, I believe. Let's double check. Yeah, I'm back. Sorry. But yes, not all upgrades and renovations are going to be good. I will share with you some things that are good. Let's see if this shares with it first. Right. So modernized kitchens, updated bathrooms, energy efficient windows. So just windows in general. High quality flooring. Flooring is a question mark around that one. So those are some of the things, right? I would even add, one thing that, and I'm curious, right? If you're watching this, I'm curious to know, do you think a paved driveway is going to help you with your value add in terms of if appraisal comes by your property or a property to do the appraisal of it? Do you think a paved, like a nice, freshly paved driveway is going to help you with your property value, right? I'm just curious. Let me know in the comments. I'll give you a second and I'll just talk about some other things and I'll tell you the answer. Don't get me wrong. I just want you to let me know or at least think about it, right? Because if I just tell you all the answers, then chances are when you're going out there, hopefully you remember, but chances are you're not going to remember. But one thing I want to caution you of is any outdated systems. I think they talked about what was the previous one? No, it didn't talk about so any outdated systems, appliances really is going to be a big telltale sign of the condition of the home in itself. All right, if you have updated appliances, chances are everything is working and it is going up to speed. But to answer the question, what I do that for? But to answer your question about if paved driveways do have value, they do because they're part of the curb appeal, right? So if you guess yes, then you're onto something. So here's this article I found to help you understand a little bit more about what are some things that you can consider when thinking about a renovation. And the reason why I want you to really think about it, because maybe you found a home and it is a perfect home, perfect layout, exactly what you're looking for. It's just not up to date, right? Don't necessarily go into every single home and put so much sweat and equity and time into it, and it's not going to yield you anything in the long run. So, just more or less sharing with you all this so that you can go ahead and make these important decisions when looking at homes in itself and kind of thinking, long term, right? A lot of times I go into homes and they're maybe not open floor plan, and you making it a home in open floor plan, I don't think is gonna help you at all, but makes it look nice. But bathroom upgrades, right? So that's one of them, as we've mentioned already. Kitchens is another one, yeah, as we already discussed. It's a nice little kitchen. What's another one? Health forward changes. What in the heck does that even mean? So they may not come right to mind when you think of renovations, but changes that can affect your health and your family's health can be a worthy investment. This is news to me. And if you're considering your home materials don't seem like a natural, yeah, interesting. Like that's news to me. I mean, if you're talking about health, that's like literally thinking of yourself, which is fine. But how does that gonna help somebody else? Anywho, then we have leveling up the exterior. So, like I mentioned, siding. Siding is a big one. Siding the shingles. That's the roof. Sorry, siding. And what's the other one? Right. So it's talking about curb appeal. It does say roof, but there it is. It's mainly the siding, I would say. Siding, your gutters, anything like that is really gonna affect. Right. Again, if it looks nice, chances are they're gonna. And this is everybody. Right. If you see a home on the outside, you're looking at it, and it looks bad, you're already gonna have the expectation, or at least the idea of, man, this house is gonna be bad. So you already put that. You already put that in perspective in itself. So, of course, if your roof is good, make sure your backyard and your grass is cut, right? That's a big one. I think that was the last one in regards to, no, there's not. That was number 4. There's two more. Number 5, big design impacts. I would argue this one. I will so argue, and I'm gonna argue it because I'm gonna show you a clip. Hopefully, it all works well, but I'm gonna show you a clip on why I don't think big design impacts is a great thing to do all the time, right? It all has to really make sense. Not to say you can't personalize your home, but you don't want to literally personalize it too much to the point where somebody is going to have to literally destruct everything you did to make it fit for their liking or their lifestyle. But big design impacts, this one is kind of like, I mean, I've seen this sort of like, I've seen this in the living room a lot in some homes. So if that's what it was referring to, then sure. But I don't know. I put a question mark around this. And then creating a space unique to your family. Again, this is back to that personalization. I'm going to argue that. And instead of me continuing to say I'm going to argue this, I'm going to show you why. Hopefully we don't have any issues. I'm going to share with you this clip. And it's been playing this entire time. That's crazy. Okay. So you guys got the gist. Oop, oop, oop. So you guys got the gist. Hopefully by seeing that, hopefully it was clear enough for you to be able to see it. That is a clip I came across on TikTok. And when I saw it, I was like, I don't know if that's necessarily gonna help. Don't get me wrong. Nice. Really unique. I've personally never saw anything like that before. Essentially, that the kitchen didn't have any cabinets. At least didn't have any cabinets on the higher levels, right? So it seems like all the cabinets were really low, which makes sense, right? Fits for that person's lifestyle, what they're looking to do. But I was like, I don't know necessarily if that's gonna be good for appraisal going into the property and trying to value this home. It's like, well, there's no cabinets, right? It's very modern, very, very different than I think what anybody is really, really used to. And the reasoning, if you guys didn't check it out, the reasoning, I guess, was there was a time in her life where the cabinets fell on her, which is why she's probably like, yeah, I don't want any sort of cabinets to be up there. So that experience doesn't happen again. But something like that, do you think personally, is it going to add value? Do you think this is your perspective? This is your thinking. Do you think that's going to add value in a home or increase the value, whatever the case may be? Because personally speaking, I'm going to go on my own ledge and say, I don't know about that one. Let me know in the comments, but we'll move on to the next thing here because I want to show you an example of an appraisal report. This is probably what you're going to receive from a lender at some point in time. If you're getting a loan or you're trying to just understand what the value is of your home, to understand it. And this is a blank one. This is something I found. I forgot what website. It was one of the, I think Freddie Mac gave me this one on their website. But this, and I'm not gonna go over this one. I'm just gonna show you what it is because I do have one where we can actually go through it in detail. And it's actually filled out. Now, is it real? I don't know that. It's a sample. I can't personally show you any real ones right now, just because it has obviously confidential information. But this is what an appraisal looks like. Right. So if you are in the process and your lender sends you this report, you can look through it. I encourage it. Well, I just want to be able to show you what it looks like so you are aware. And then we'll go through the real one. This part is really not that important. All this, I would say, and I should explain this a little bit more, but from this part here, this is just really sharing with you what exactly an appraiser does, right? So very similar to what we just talked about for the past 30 something minutes. And that's that, right? But like I mentioned, I wanted to show you what an appraisal report that's actually completed looks like. So we'll go ahead and take a look. And you see my highlights? I came prepared for this one. This is 20 pages, but we are definitely not going to look at 20 pages today. But let's get moving. So yes, this is what it's going to look like, right? It's going to have a nice picture of your home, of what it all looks like. And we can start here. So this is just talking about the area, right? Talking about the area where the home is located. Again, going back to neighborhood, right? That's why it's important to understand where you're purchasing. Make sure you purchase an area where, and it's hard to tell if an area is going to grow or not. I mean, not, I shouldn't say an area entirely. I should say a neighborhood. One of the easiest telltale sign is how much, economic activity is going on in an area is going to give you an idea if that area is going to grow. Now, if that area grows, then it's going to ripple effect right into your neighborhood. So you're buying a good neighborhood, so they're going to look at the characteristics of it. And so what are some of the things they're going to look at? Location of it, is it built up, the type, like, is it built up in terms of how completed it is in comparison, like new construction, right? They're building in phases and stuff like that. So that's really what they're talking about. Growth. They're looking, of course, how is the growth in the area in general. So that's good. Property value. So they're running their own comps, right? And you'll see some of the comps. They share some of the comps that they use to be able to identify what the home value is in itself. They're also looking at supply and demand, and that's a really big thing because if a home is in an area where the supply is really shot, that means prices are only going to go up. If you're in an area where there's a lot of supplies, chances are you're going to be experiencing maybe stable or declining prices. It all depends. And so marketing time is how many days on market. Of course, this being X'd off as under 3 months, that's a really good thing for the sellers. Maybe not so much for buyers, but that also helps with the valuation of it, right? Because again, if it's under 3 months, that means a lot of people were looking at it, or there's a lot of people that wanted it. So therefore, it's highly desirable, which means whatever value they give to it, or at least whatever value that the offer came in at, chances are it's going to be close to it, or maybe just at it, as long as it's nothing outrageous. And so if we look at the site, this one I wouldn't say is too much importance. personally speaking, just because we all need electricity. Not all properties are going to have gas. Water is always going to be a thing, so we won't really touch upon that. But we'll move on to improvements, right? So what was that? So we'll move on to improvements, which is looking at the foundation, the exterior, very similar to what we already discussed and talked about. They're also going to be looking at your interior as well. So they do look at floors. Interesting. I guess the type of floor they're looking at, which is pretty interesting to know. But again, something to keep in mind too. They're looking at your appliances to see, how many of it is actually updated, if it even includes it. All right, so that's something to know to note. Additional features, central air, right? So that's those are all up to date newer things that does help. Newer windows, updated bath, enclosed patio, newer floors, right? These are all great things. These are all going to help at the end of the day. But when you're looking at your report, just look at what notes that they've made. That's going to help you tremendously be able to identify exactly what's going on there. And so here is the comparable. So this is the subject property, and there are, how many homes that they found that is very similar or close or very similar, like it, close to it, whatever the case may be. And now they're going to look at it in comparison. Now you're going to see minuses, you're going to see pluses at this point in time on the other properties. You're not going to see it on, the property that you're looking at or your own property. You're going to see minuses and pluses on other ones because again, they're subtracting and adding different features of it. So let's just say here we see this minus 15, which means this home here is older. I wish they would show you no, it's okay. So that was actually quality. That's actually probably not a good one. So let's actually use the square footage, right? So they're minusing it because they're trying to get this property here to be very similar to that, which obviously this one is bigger. So they have to take away from it to make it even. When they say quality of construction, I don't know what exactly that is referring to, or condition. I don't know. Conditions are very obvious, but quality of construction, maybe the person just never took care of the property properly. But overall, they're going to do that, and they're going to come out with these numbers here at the bottom, which then somehow, some way, they come up with this number right here. This is the most important piece. Every time I get an appraisal report, this is where I look first, because this is either going to determine if I have to negotiate or do we have the ability to move forward into the process, into the steps in itself. But here you can see 520 is what they determined that this home is valued at, right? So now the bank is going to use that to essentially say, okay, well, if that's the property, if the property is 520 in this case, right, 520,000 value that, and the offer price is, let's say 515, anything below 520, you're fine, right? You're in good shape actually. The cost approach, that is, we'll see a little bit we'll see at the bottom, which explains a little bit more of. And so essentially that 520 to 524 is like your range. I'm going to go ahead and share with you. But definitely check here. Please, 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 for your own sake, for your own peace of mind. Again, here's some more comparables. I don't think I have anything else. They do from time to time share additional information explaining exactly what they did here in the additional comment section. I encourage you to look at this as well. All right, if you don't want to look at anything throughout this entire report, the best places to look is to see what the value was, which I'll scroll up once more, which is here. Check the value, and then at least go see what comments they had to say about it, because this is kind of going to sum up everything without necessarily having to look at everything individually speaking. Of course, this is just a sample, so don't really worry about reading any of this. And then that's really it. This is the cost approach that I was referring to a little bit earlier, which kind of shares with you how exactly they priced everything in itself. And then that's it. And then again, this is just sharing with you what exactly an appraiser is going to do and how even they define market value. This is actually something that you can all screenshot, quite honestly. Right. So if you ever are trying to figure out what is market value for yourself, you screenshot this. You can use this on your day to day to help you understand, how do you even define market value? But there's real importance to this appraisal stuff. This is again just talking to you about what the appraisal is doing. That's really all that it goes into that report in itself. So I did that. Now we got to move on to the next piece because your boy, your boy did some. He didn't do any work, but when I say your boy, President Trump, he started a conversation about housing again. And so by starting these conversations about housing, you are naturally going to cause more chaos, more conversations, more news outlets sharing X, Y, and Z about what's going on. And so let me go ahead and share with you what I came across. I wasn't freaking out about anything, but it's kind of just like, it's good to know this information because this is where it may go to, it may lead to, right? Which it says Donald Trump gets bad news from Americans about housing market, and where in fact I didn't really see any. And this wasn't like an interview. This was more or less just people who are in executive levels just talking about the economy and explaining what they're seeing. So let's really go ahead and talk about that. Why did that's a weird ad right there, bro? Anyways, looking at this one here, let me go ahead and zoom in so you can go ahead and take a peek if you want to read along with me. But national title and escrow expert Alan Chung told Newsweek. So the housing market has been unhealthy for the last several years, as we all know. Depending on what side you may say, you may not actually say it's unhealthy. You may actually say it's healthy if you already own a home. But with unsustainable low interest rates driving up housing valuations for years, the market has been unbalanced for 5+ years. Right. So that's one of the things that people are saying. As interest rates normalize to the historic averages, which, sorry to break it to you, that historic averages, right? And I put quotation marks around those intentionally, is like between 5 and 6. So that's what he's referring to. Buyer affordability has been much lower than in the recent years, which has propped up the neutral to negative consumer sentiment. Right, that's number one. So Alex Bean, I think that's how you say your name, a financial literacy instructor for the University of Tennessee at Martin, told Newsweek the past few weeks has seen a flurry of news on the new housing market. I think you're always going to see news about it, right? It's swifting through to make sure you are actually seeing the news that matter and is relatable to you and what you're trying to do in your market. That's the hard part because there's always going to be news. There's always clickbait. There's always something somewhere. Right. So with some data suggesting rays of light and others presenting a not so good outlook for the coming year. While those in real estate may feel optimistic about more inventory and slightly declining interest rates, right? That's a lot of people. This data shows that even those factors aren't enough to generate more positivity for potential buyers. So as you guys all know, right, there's three aspects to the real estate market. There's inventory, there's prices, and there's interest rates. Almost blank there, right? So obviously, with more inventory, prices generally should come down, and of course, interest rates as well. Another aspect I should even mention is monthly payments, right? That's a whole nother aspect of it. But it seems as if the more inventory and slightly decreasing of interest rates aren't really doing anything to the market, right? So that's probably news to President Trump there. If he even read any of this, again, I really wish they had that dialogue to really understand what exactly did those Americans, based off of this article, they're saying Americans have bad news. So what exactly did they share about? We have Noel Tassi, the CEO and president of real estate agent platform Ready, or yeah, I think Ready, I guess. It's crucial to look beyond just rates, right? I agree. Total inventory is up 17% year over year, and home prices continue to rise across all regions. Not all regions, depends. We're seeing a shift. More sellers are entering the market. As we move into the traditional busy season, which is like that spring, that summer, and buyers are adjusting to the reality that mortgage rates aren't likely to drop significantly anytime soon, rather than waiting for affordability to improve. Many buyers are taking action now, recognizing that rising inventory provides more choices and slightly better negotiating power compared to the hyper competitive markets of 2021 and 2022. That I agree with him so heartedly, honestly. How many more we got? We got two more. So we have of come on, brother. There we go. And the CEO of less confident. Really, Americans are growing less confident about housing, and it's not just the high housing costs go far beyond the mortgage. Go far beyond the mortgage. Where am I? Right here. Far beyond the mortgage. Property taxes, homeowners insurance, maintenance, and all of it is rising year after year. It's starting to click for folks. Buying a home is just not about getting approved for a loan. It's about being able to afford the ongoing cost of home ownership. Why are you popping up with ads right now, bro? We have a comment. Oh, the general learner. What's up, man? Man, just teasing you, man. Oh man, hope you're doing good, man. Hope you're staying blessed. I hope you're jumping in back in the market. I know last time you mentioned okay, so we have Michael Ryan here, a finance expert. That's so weird. Anyway, sorry. A finance expert and the founder of Michael Ryan Money.com. Young couples putting off that starter home. That's a lot of people, man. That is a lot of people. How is this news to Donald? Is he out of touch? Harry. So we have a comment from Harry. How is this news to Donald? Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. Honestly, I can't necessarily give you the proper answer. My guess is, Harry, he could be out of touch because he got so much going on. I mean, just even I think week one of being in office, I don't remember how many executive orders that he even put into place, but this I'm sure he's aware of, yes, housing costs are specifics and how to bring it to reality, right? That I don't think he's actually doing. I think there, if anything, and you'll hear more that I share, they're putting more task force in place to be able to handle these things. But is it's the only way he's out of touch is of course affordability, people not being able to afford homes. Interest rates are high. Like that's very Michael Ryan's finance expert and the founder of Michael Ryan Money. Our home, like I mentioned, that's a real thing. That's I'm seeing it more and more. Families stuck in rental cycles that I am seeing even more. It's like watching the American dream slip away through their fingers, one decimal point at a time. Couldn't have said it any better. Unfortunately, anything of his doing. This is all issues that we experienced even prior to his presidency. So I don't know why that comment's in there, but his tariff policies also not a good thing for the housing market. Are spooking home buyers right now. In fact, home buyers, at least from what I'm hearing, they're hoarding lumber because of the fear of what actually is going to occur with tariffs. Thinking about us, and they're not trying to raise prices even more because that dropping to 42. That's more than just a statistic. That's confidence evaporating, right? Which is the things that were already put into place, right? So if we start, right? So again, to Harry's point, the executive order that was on January 20th, right? So we're talking about, there we go, delivering emergency price relief for American families and defeating the cost of living crisis, right? So it's known, right? But it's just, what do we do to get to that solution? How do we fix this? Those are really what I think everyone's trying to figure out and trying to get to the bottom line of it. But this is what's put into place right now that actually has played a factor in it, right? So we're talking about stringent, we're talking about building code requirements, right? That's played a factor right now. So building code requirements on all new homes qualifying for federally backed mortgages. That's playing a factor because you could see, right? The National Association of Builders, and let me go ahead and highlight, the National Association of Builders estimate it can add up to $31,000 to the cost of a new home. Right. And this is stuff that is already in place, already been imposed. You see that there? This is not new. But this is stuff that could be reversed. And this is not to say I'm playing any side here. This is me just giving you guys the facts of what I'm reading and what's actually happening. At the same time, right, we have the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection Agency finalized costly regulations impacting almost every home appliances. So we're talking about more increases in prices, right? We're talking about refrigerators, ovens, air conditionings, right? Furnaces, washing machines, like water heaters. That's another big one too, right? We're talking about, if we go ahead and start doing stuff around that, you're only going to increase the cost of that. And then there's one more. This is where I don't see it. Okay, so this is the interesting part. Far too much of America is owned by the federal government. I had no idea that I know about the state parks and stuff like that, but when I saw how much land they actually own, I was like, wow, I'm actually quite amazed. So including some land suitable for housing, but off limits to it. So that's that. I'm curious though. I'm curious to hear what you guys think. Do you really think that incorporating federal land and building homes on it can actually reduce the prices of homes? Let me know in the comments, because I this one here, it's it's like a hard. I mean, we're talking about, and that's because I've know what I'm going to present to you guys, but it's like a hard, for me personally. It's like a hard no. Just because it's like, man, we're talking about where these areas are. Do people even want to live there? But it's like so much going on right now. That is, I think, what's allowing so much uncertainty and allowing for people to freak out, pause, or even increase prices in certain areas and certain things, or move quicker than others. So here's the article that states, right, Trump administration plans to construct nearly 4 million affordable homes on federal land. When I see this, I literally just think, man, I think this is just a plan to literally just focus not on affordable homes, but just homes that people don't want. I mean, oh man, I don't know how to best explain this. Because, okay, let me just quit. Let me just share with you why I share what I share. All right. Oh, brother. Alrighty. So first off, they are going to partner with a bunch of different. So this article is stating they're going to partner with a bunch of different people that obviously bring this whole housing development thing to fruition. right? So when they're partnering with everyone, they're going to either transfer it or they're going to lease it out to local governments, right? They're not necessarily going to just sell it. Right? They're gonna make sure they keep their hands in the pot. That's number one. So we're talking about more people in the pot, which means profits, margins are going to be very slim to none, if anything, right? This also increasing supply, right? That's fair to say. Like, increasing supply is definitely going to help, right? Reduce the prices, but affordability to the point where it's where everybody wants it to be. I think that's a stretch. I really don't. I don't care how much land they have to offer. I mean, we're talking about, and again, most of this land, and I'll share with you. I have maps to show you. Literally, most of the land is on the West Coast. Which anybody that's on the West Coast, if you're in the comments, let me know. Is it that bad over there? Like, we're talking Nevada, Utah, California, Arizona. Though that's where most of the inventory is going to be positioned. As far as what I know, a lot of people are moving. If anything, I know more people who are leaving California. Arizona, they have their own new development issues right now, right? Where they have too much supply, right? So that's not going to help their issue at all. Utah is actually, they're getting up there in terms of supply. They may even be at pre-pandemic levels at the same time. Nevada, I'm not sure on. So there's that, right? I think their real focus is going to be affordable housing. And I don't think everyone's going to want to go towards those affordable housing aspect. The reason why I don't think people are going to want to go towards the affordable housing aspect is just because it's not going to be the right way of living for them, right? And on top of that, how long is this going to take? I mean, if we're short 7 million, no, that's not right. We're short like 3 million, 3.8 million. I don't know how they got that. The US, yeah. That I don't know how that got there, but we're definitely short like more 3.8 million. If we're short 3.8 million, we're talking about including permits to the equation, zoning laws, land use restrictions, building codes, everyone being on the same page. Yeah, good luck. Good freaking luck. I mean, it's going to create new jobs, which I think is going to be great and dope for anybody in construction. But is it going to be what everybody wants it to be? Probably not. But this is why I like chuckled and laughed when I saw it, because again, going back to what I mentioned, right? This proposal saying President Trump has proposed using some of the 650 million acres of federal land to develop new housing, right? We're talking about homes that are going to be developed all on the West Coast, right? Not so much the Midwest, but more or less West Coast. So Colorado and onward, essentially, to the left of it. This is why I laughed, because this doesn't help anything on the East Coast, which of course, I could be, kind of biased because I'm on the East Coast. But I know more people leaving the West Coast than moving to the West Coast. So it's like, is that really going to help the issue? All right. So if we go ahead and check out this one. So only out of what we just saw. So if you took a picture of that, great. But if you didn't, yeah, I'll go back once more so you can see. So this is what the federal government owns, right, entirely. Out of everything that we just saw, only some of that federal land falls into U.S. metro areas, which is why I say, hey, all right, are we going to put everybody in like the middle of nowhere and just plant them somewhere where they don't necessarily want to be, where they're maybe hour or an hour and a half away from an area? So we're talking about now, if we're talking only some of this is in metro areas, then we're now talking about develop entirely new areas if we're trying to fulfill what that other picture I just showed you, which is insane to me, because that's not something that's going to happen next year. Not at all. I give it 5 years or so. I don't care I don't care how much manpower you put on the ground. You're not getting that done in a year, obviously. So Trump proposal can make a real impact in states such as, like I mentioned, Nevada, Utah, California, Arizona, where that's where most of their land is. At this current moment, I know Utah and Arizona have more inventory than they need. So that's probably not going to help them. This is such a great piece of, and this is all with Wall Street Journal. Like all these pictures I'm showing, I should have shared that earlier. All these pictures I'm sharing is with Wall Street Journal. You can go ahead and take a look at that. And so look at, here's where they share with you. Actually, this is actually a good piece to roll right into it. About 7.3 of all federal land falls within metro areas that need more homes. Okay, that's great, right? The success of this policy then hinges on releasing federal lands in the right places, right? That's going to be the issue. Yeah, sure, you can build wherever the heck you want to build, but is it going to be in places that people are desirable? Is that where people want to live? That's the number one question. Because if it's in a place where people don't want to live, then more homes is not the solution. More homes in the wrong area. I should correct myself, right? More homes in the wrong area is not the solution. And so we have Degenerate Lender. He says, "Are you seeing that sellers are still in the mindset that they think they can get COVID prices for their homes despite what their agent may suggest? I see so many price drops in the market." Absolutely. I think everyone is stuck in that mindset, and including, sorry for anybody that's watching and you feel offended by this point, including everyone who wants interest rates to go back to threes in the twos. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen unless if that happens again. I think this entire country is going haywire, and I think we're going to have a much bigger issue on that front. But yes, I think everyone is stuck there still. I mean, it's FOMO, the fear of missing out. It's one of those things where it's like, and just look at it from a seller's perspective. I don't want to put you there, but the general learner, like, let's just put it like this. If you knew a couple of years ago you can get more for your home, would you really want to decrease your prices for the person that's trying to buy it? I get it. If you really have to move, then sure, you're going to do it, which is why I always encourage you guys. If you guys are really looking at homes, look at days on market and then look at the price cuts. If they're doing a lot of price cuts, that's a clear sign that they need to move on. Their plans that they have, it's coming to a closer of an end, I guess I should say. So yeah, I think a lot of people are still stuck. I think slowly but surely, as time goes on, it may take longer than anybody really anticipates or wants for everyone to really get back to normalcy. I will say right now, people are kind of just, the people that I see that are moving are people that have to move. They're not people that are just saying, "Hey, I want to move," which was essentially what was happening back in 2020, really 2020 to really 2022, where people were like, I'm just moving. Yeah, I'm just gonna move just because I'm gonna take advantage of the low rates or whatever the case may be. But now I'm seeing more people move because family, they want to be closer to family. They, need to take care of family. It's job relocation, right? And I think that's why we're seeing the big boom in the Northeast. Harry mentioned, "Sure, I'll be glad to pay 25% less in a risk and risk a roof collapse and death. Who needs building codes? Save money. Living in the middle of nowhere, no problem. I'll buy a Tesla." Hey man, you got to make sure you can charge your Tesla too, though. That's fair though. It's not. That's gonna work for you, but I don't think it's gonna work for the majority. This is just my personal opinion, though. I don't think that's gonna work for the majority of America. I think a majority of America want to be close to the metro areas, close to where there are things to do to supplement their living, their day to day. It's not all just about the home in itself, but I know for a fact that you will pay 25% less. So, and again, I just gave you a strategy on how to do that. Go look at homes that have higher days on market. Go look at their price cuts because let me actually. I don't think I saved it. Let me do this for you. Yep, here it is. I'm gonna share this, and this is right to your point, Harry. So you're okay with paying 25%, right? So if I showed you this, would this change your mind? So if we go ahead and take a look at this, we can see I need demand. So how many homes have sold above list price, right? So 24%, which is down. How many of them have a price cuts? We're talking about 17.8% of them. I don't know, maybe you could see this. So 17.8 have price cuts. How many of them are getting list price? Majority of everyone's still getting list price, unfortunately, right? And we could check in the past 5 years for all of them. I'll go back and unfortunately, they're all still getting close to list price. But this is why, is again, just looking at your market, looking on your market the day to day, and just really seeing. If you don't have a real estate agent that's navigating this for you, then this is a prime example for you to reach out to me and let me know so that I can put you in contact with someone that's actually going to look at this a little bit more. But here's what's been going on in the past 5 years in terms of price cuts, right? So of course by 2020 we've seen an increase, and it's kind of just been in this range since. Price cuts are happening more than I think everyone is realizing. Not unfortunately, but unfortunately in a sense where it's like people are just not taking advantage of it. And of course, this is the past 5 years of how many homes are selling above list. And again, most sellers are not getting above list no more. As you guys can see here, it's coming in a lot less. Let me know what questions that you guys do have. If you guys do need help in the market specifically and you need a real estate agent, again, I'm in the North Carolina market. I can help you there. I'm more of an expertise there and can give you guidance on what's going on there. But if you need specific help in certain areas, then I would encourage you. Actually, I'll show you exactly what you can do to get my attention, right? Of course, outside of popping up here. So if you go to here, RoneyPolynice.com, you can actually click Let's Chat. After clicking that, just complete this entire form. That way I will get notified. And once I get notified, I'll reach out to you and we'll understand, depending on, of course, the information you share here. Hopefully it's in detail information. That way I can necessarily know exactly who to partner you up with. Because that's the key thing, right? Even I can screw up sometimes and partner you up with the wrong person because, people change, let's just put it like that. But let me know in the comments before I depart myself from the stream here today. I hope this, just kind of the updates and letting you know what's going on is giving you an insight of, how to prepare yourself. But at the same time, what's really happening. Right now, I will mention if you see an opportunity, don't wait. Because, being down 3.8 million homes, I read an article that said it can take 7 years to get back to that, I guess, that where we should be. And that's, again, the only reason why we're short 3.8 million homes is because of 2008, right? Where builders really stopped building. So with builders not building no more, and that's allowed everything to kind of be short, and that's what allowed prices to do what they had to do. And we all seen the picture. But being short that many homes, and builders are going to be strategic as heck. Don't think builders are going to build. I'll tell you that. Do not, if they can slow down, they will slow down. In fact, they'll probably start renting out their places before selling them. So just be cautious. Know how to navigate the market. Do it to your benefit. But if you guys don't have any other questions, you guys know where to find me next week. Same time, same place. Wednesday, 7 p.m. If degenerate learner, if you're still here, don't be late. But with all that being said, man, you guys have a good one. Y'all stay blessed, man. Of course, you're welcome here. Thanks for the current info and chat. Good going. Absolutely. Make sure you share with all your friends and family, honestly, too, at the same point, right? All right. If you guys know that people are in the market at this current time and they need help, please share with them. Let's bring this community, let's make this community a little bit more of a place where people can actually get some real guidance on what's going on in real estate, not just headlines and different things that's going to confuse people, and not actually give them the information that they need to be able to buy a home and have a successful home ownership experience. Because there's too much crap out there, and it's unfortunate. But again, I'll be back with more information next week. So see y'all.